Hello, and thank you for joining me. Here in Copenhagen, we are still enjoying springtime. Every chef loves springtime. We get to cut back on the heavy ingredients that dominated the winter menu and embrace the delicate flavors of those first veggies that show up with the warmth. But it can feel like a very short-lived season. And we've been having some pretty warm days, which has me thinking it won't be too much longer before summer is here and the spread at the produce market changes completely. So before that happens, I wanted to take a moment to appreciate one of the most luxurious springtime vegetables I can think of: white asparagus. To be honest with you, I didn't even know about white asparagus until I worked in a 2 Michelin-starred restaurant where it was one of the stars on the springtime menu, with just a big pot of boiling water and some lovingly made hollandaise. Carlos and Alyssa, depending on the night, would send out dozens of those long, tender stalks into an elegant New York City dining room. Which is to say, white asparagus has the connotation of being a luxury ingredient in the States because it only seems to show up in fine restaurants. But here in Denmark, it is a very normal thing. In spring, you can even get it at your local grocery store. They even have it in cans, which apparently is a staple of any Danish grandma's pantry. And from what I understand, the situation is similar in Germany, Holland, and Poland. White asparagus is beloved, but it is far from exclusive. And that's great news for me. So let's take a look at a couple different ways to enjoy this unique vegetable. I went to one of my favorite vegetable markets to get mine. Good quality means they are nice and fat, shiny and smooth, not wrinkly, no cracks in the stalk, and the head should be tight without anything flaking off, and minimal to no discoloration. I picked through to find some really nice ones, and because they are so big, I only really need a couple pieces per serving. And back at the ranch, we just need to do a little prep work to make them ready to cook and eat. White asparagus are grown encased in dirt. This intentionally deprives them of sunlight, which would make them turn green otherwise. However, this also results in a slightly tough skin all along the asparagus, which needs to be peeled. But this is a very quick and easy process. Using a vegetable peeler, I just start right below the tip and travel all the way down the length of the stalk. I like to leave the asparagus flat on a surface, like my cutting board, and just roll the stalk as I go until it is completely peeled. And as far as the bottoms are concerned, most of it is edible, but as you can see at the end, it is a little dry and tough. So we just use a knife to take off maybe half an inch. But listen to your knife. If it feels like you are cutting through something woody, you might need to take off a little bit more. And while we are on the subject of asparagus peeling, let me take a moment to speak about properly peeling green asparagus as well, because I realize that is the variety you are more likely to encounter and use on a regular basis. And the green asparagus are also very beautiful right now, so I wanted to mention it. So many people are taught to prep asparagus by bending the stalk until it breaks, and then tossing out that bottom part. Stop doing this! You're wasting so much great vegetable unnecessarily. Instead, use your peeler the same way I did on the white asparagus, but just on the bottom third of the stalk. Peeling the stalk dramatically increases the edible yield. You will have to trim a little bit more of the bottom than with the white asparagus, yes, but not by much. And again, listen to your knife and go a little higher if it's feeling woody. But just look at how much more edible asparagus I got when peeling as opposed to snapping. This is a precious vegetable with a short-lived season, so why not take a little more time and waste a lot less? Anyway, I could say a lot more about what this says about our food culture at large, but we need to move on. Now that our white asparagus are peeled and trimmed, we are ready to cook and serve them. The most classic way to serve white asparagus is to simply boil them and serve them with a generous amount of hollandaise. So to do that, we just get a nice amount of water on the stove, give it enough salt so it tastes like the sea, then bring it up to a boil, and drop those asparagus in. Cooking time will vary depending on the size, but rough estimate I'm thinking will be between 2 and 5 minutes. To check, I use a little cake tester to poke them in the stalk, A little resistance is fine, but if your cake tester or paring knife feels like it is getting stuck and won't slide out very easily, they probably need to boil a little bit longer. The gang of 3 I will take out a little early because I have a little surprise planned for later, but the pair I will leave until tender. And that should do it. As for the hollandaise, I've got a whole separate video on that, so click the link to learn the recipe we used in a Michelin restaurant. But for now, I'll give a quick overview here. Start by clarifying some butter, make a vinegar reduction if you are feeling ambitious, separate out some egg yolks. In a pot on the stove over low heat, we whisk those yolks continuously until they start to tighten up and set. Then we slowly drizzle in our very warm clarified butter, and eventually our hollandaise comes together. Season with that vinegar reduction, a pinch of salt and cayenne, and a little lemon juice, and keep it covered in a warm place until ready to serve. Plating this classic couldn't be simpler. Place the hot asparagus on a plate. I do 2 big ones per serving. Then just drizzle that beautiful hollandaise all over. Actually, at the current restaurant I work at, we do a fun Nordic variation on this classic I can show you here. There are these tiny shrimp that are very popular here, and we just warm those very gently in a little bit of butter and pepper, and we spoon them over our sauced asparagus. And then because it's a Scandinavian restaurant, we garnish with a little bit of dill. Ooh, looks pretty good, right? So there you have a very classic way to enjoy this very special vegetable. But what's that, you say? You don't want to go to the trouble of making hollandaise? Or maybe you feel it's a bit too heavy? Well, how about I do one variation for fun? Back at Jean George, we would sometimes do fun competitions with a special ingredient for each contest. One time the special ingredient was white asparagus. One cook did a variation of white asparagus with a Chimichurri Style sauce, and it was great! So why don't we try to recreate that? First, let's talk chimichurri, or in this case, a chimichurri-inspired sauce. A traditional chimi will include lots of parsley and cilantro, but because it's still springtime here, ramps are growing like weeds. So I want to include some in this chimi-style recipe. Let's get to chopping. I want some shallot in the base of my sauce, so let's peel and dice a small one. Now for our greenery, let's start with some parsley, which I just washed. Notice I don't leave much of the stem in when it comes to parsley. But when it comes to cilantro, I don't mind the stems because they are tender and flavorful. Now for our ramps. We even have some ramp flowers to play with. And look at the fruits of our chopping labor. With all the knife work taken care of, we just need to put it together. I get all my herbs and shallots in a bowl, give it a good pinch of salt, and then choose a vinegar you like, but my personal favorite is always apple cider. I get a good glug of that in there and give everything a stir. And now it's time for our olive oil. And I know it's a precious substance, but you've just got to be generous here. Enough to cover everything and bring it to a saucy consistency. Maybe just another splash. And since we are doing a chimichurri style sauce, I think it would be great if we went out and grilled the asparagus for this version. So that's just what I did. I've got some nice coals going here. Now I just place down my half-blanched asparagus. I even tried to blow on the coals some to keep things nice and hot. And eventually they took some good color. Back inside, it's time to plate up. We've got the grillers down on the plate, and I give them just this little squeeze of lemon juice. And just like the classic version, we want to be generous with our sauce. And to keep in the spirit of foraging, I've got some magnolia blossoms here, as well as a few ramp flowers, as well as some nice broccoli flowers. Now that's a colorful plate. Let's have a look at it in the natural light as well. The classic version will always have its place, but I really love this grilled version with the zesty ramp chimney. So give them both a try and decide for yourself which is best. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this look at a very unique and coveted springtime vegetable. Even if you can't find white asparagus where you are, I still recommend learning how to make hollandaise, because it's also really tasty on green asparagus and on your homemade eggs Benedict. So get cooking and enjoy those spring vegetables while they are still around. If you like the video, please hit the like button to prove it, and subscribe for similar style videos on a nearly weekly basis. And of course, say hi and ask questions in the comments. It's great to hear what people think. Until next time, cheers!